The moment my entire life cracked in half didn't happen when I found lipstick on a collar or a suspicious text message. It happened when a woman I'd never met before stood in front of me at a grocery store, stared at me like she'd seen a ghost, and said, "I'm so sorry, I thought you knew? My husband had told me he was traveling for work." He said it with that calm, confident tone that made me trust him without question. But in less than 60 seconds, a stranger destroyed that story and everything I thought I knew about my marriage. So tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you have confronted him immediately, or would you have waited to see just how deep the lie really went? I had been married to my husband, Mark, for 8 years at that point. 8 years of what I genuinely believed was a solid, grown-up marriage. We weren't the overly romantic couple posting gushy photos online, but we were stable, comfortable, predictable. We had routines, shared jokes, and a quiet understanding that felt like safety. Mark worked in sales for a regional company, and his job involved travel. Not constant travel, but enough that it never raised alarms. A few days here, a week there. Conferences, client meetings, training seminars. I never questioned it because it made sense, and because I trusted him. Completely. The trip that changed everything was supposed to be a 5-day work conference in another state. Mark packed his suitcase, kissed me on the forehead, told me he'd call every night, and reminded me to water the plants. Normal, boring, safe. The first 2 days went exactly as expected. Short phone calls, texts about long meetings and bad hotel food. On the third day, though, something felt off. He didn't call that night. He texted instead, saying meetings ran late and he was exhausted. I brushed it off. The fourth day, his replies got slower, shorter. When I tried calling, it went to voicemail. Still, I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't want to be that paranoid spouse who invents problems where none exist. On the fifth day, the day he was supposed to fly home, I went to the grocery store after work to pick up a few things so I could cook his favorite dinner. I remember standing in the produce aisle, comparing avocados when I heard someone say my name. Not loudly, just carefully, like they weren't sure. I turned around, and there was a woman about my age, maybe mid-30s, holding a basket and looking incredibly uncomfortable. She asked, "You're Mark's wife, right?" My first thought was that she must be a coworker. Maybe someone from his office. I smiled and said yes. That's when her face fell. She introduced herself as Lisa. She said she worked with Mark, not just in the same company, but directly with him. She hesitated, then said, "He told us he was on vacation this week." I laughed at first. I actually laughed, because it sounded so ridiculous. I told her no, he was at a work conference. Lisa went quiet. The silence stretched, heavy and wrong. Then she said the words that still echo in my head. "Mark quit 3 months ago." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I asked her what she meant, my voice suddenly too loud, my hands shaking so badly I had to grip the cart. She explained, slowly, like she was trying not to cause a scene, that Mark had resigned from his position. No travel, no conferences, no clients. He'd told everyone he was taking time off to figure things out. She thought I knew. She thought we were both aware. I don't remember checking out. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting in my car in the driveway, staring at my front door, feeling like I was about to walk into a stranger's house. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Boarding now. See you soon." I looked at the words and felt something inside me harden. If he wasn't traveling for work, where had he been? And why lie so convincingly? When he got home that night, I acted normal. That might sound strange, but shock does weird things to you. I hugged him. I asked about his trip. I listened as he spun detailed lies about meetings that never happened. And all I could think was, how long has he been practicing this? Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I paid closer attention. I checked phone records. I noticed how he guarded his phone, how he stepped outside to take calls, how his work trips suddenly increased in frequency. I reached out to Lisa on social media. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just asked if we could talk. She agreed. We met for coffee, and that's when the truth really started spilling out. Mark hadn't just quit his job. He'd been fired for inappropriate behavior with a coworker. Not Lisa, another woman. According to office gossip, the relationship hadn't ended when he left the company. In fact, it escalated, trips together, shared expenses, a whole secret life funded by our joint savings account. That night, I sat alone in my bedroom, going through bank statements with tears streaming down my face. Charges from hotels, restaurants I'd never been to, airline tickets booked on days he claimed to be in meetings. Every work trip lined up perfectly with these expenses. I felt stupid, betrayed, angry in a way I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just an affair. This was a double life. So that was the situation I was in. Sitting on my bed with proof spread out in front of me and a husband asleep in the next room. Completely unaware that his world was about to implode. Before I tell you what I did next, I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself what you would have done. Would you have confronted him immediately and demanded answers? Would you have packed your bags and left without a word? Or would you have stayed quiet a little longer to make sure you knew everything? Comment what you would have done if you were me, because the choice I made changed my life forever. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I gathered evidence, screenshots, statements, dates. I needed clarity, not chaos. A week later, I confronted him with everything. I laid it all out on the kitchen table, just like he'd done with his suitcase so casually weeks earlier. At first, he denied it. Then he minimized it. Then, when he realized I wasn't backing down, he snapped. He said he'd been unhappy for years, that I was distant, that the other woman understood him. He said the trips were the only time he felt alive. Something strange happened in that moment. I stopped crying. I stopped yelling. I felt calm, clear. I told him to leave. He laughed at first, like he thought I was bluffing. Then I slid divorce papers across the table. I'd already spoken to a lawyer. He packed a bag that night and went to stay with his parents. Over the next few months, the truth came out fully. The other woman left him when she realized he was broke and getting divorced. His parents were furious. Mutual friends took sides. I lost the marriage I thought I had, but I gained something I didn't know I was missing: myself. The aftermath wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, questioning everything. But there were also mornings I woke up lighter, freer, no longer living inside a lie. The divorce finalized a year later. Mark tried to apologize, tried to explain. I listened, but I didn't forgive him in the way he wanted. I forgave him by moving on. Now, when I think back to that grocery store moment, I realize how close I was to never knowing the truth. One chance encounter changed everything. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: trust is powerful, but blind trust can cost you your reality. If this story resonated with you, like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more real, raw stories like this. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments. I'll see you all in the next story.